Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Hi, my name is Matt Bennett. I'm the General Manager for Highcon Systems here in the Americas. Thank you for joining us on our customer session today. We have two distinguished Highcon customers and HP customers on our panel. Bill Lorenz from Beltwell Owens, a folding carton company in Massachusetts, right outside of Boston, and David Bennett, a commercial printer located in the Atlanta, Georgia area. So, Dscoop, as you all know, is about collaboration, and they were nice enough to join us here today and talk about their experiences so far with Highcon. I'm also assisted up here with Paul Lattimore. Paul is our Eastern Regional Sales Manager for Highcon, as well as Michelle Harrell, who's our Marketing Manager. So we're going to get right into it, folks. We've got a couple of slides to show you, just to give you an overview of Highcon and where we are. And then we're going to go right into the customer panel. This is a very open session. We have some questions that we'll start off with Bill and David. And then we'll open up to the audience for literally any questions you want to ask about Highcon. I've already prepped them that they have to say everything good about us. But knowing these two, they'll be honest and tell you everything. Anyways, with that, I'm going to turn it over to Paul, and he's going to walk us through a couple of slides of Highcon.
Good afternoon, everybody. I'm pretty happy to be here. This is my second time speaking at Dscoop. So last year we had a different customer panel. We're really excited about being here today and hosting a new customer with David Bennett and a longtime customer with Bill Lorenz at Botwell Owens. So it should be a pretty insightful series of Q&A together. So hopefully you walk out learning a few things and wanting to ask a few more questions. But as we go forward with our kind of a Highcon overview, if you will, we've seen a lot of transition over the last 20 years with digital infrastructure coming into the graphic arts community. We've seen computer to plate come in and just take over at 100%. We're seeing digital print in the last 20, 25 years with Indigo and others creep in and start to accumulate a nice sizable portion of the marketplace. And now as we look forward with digital finishing, we're seeing Highcon take a nice strong position within the market, identifying a couple of things that are still lingering in the market. While printing has become much more efficient, we still see workflow in finishing as a big bottleneck. So as you all know, we don't sell flat sheets. We have to finish a product and ship those. So that's where the Highcon comes in, a really nice play. If you look at where Highcon has been over the last few years, we started with two R&D engineers from Indigo. They looked at the technology at HP and they said, I think HP has it. I think they're really buttoned up here, but if we look at where the next growth segments are, where are they? And that's in the label and packaging area. And if we look at those areas, specifically those marketplaces, we look at the bottlenecks that are still there. Even today, traditional die cutting is still 2 to 3 days to get a die back if you order it out. If you're able to eliminate that bottleneck, you can really have speed to market, flexibility, and responsiveness for your customers. As we grow forward, our first install in North America was in 2014. From there, we launched at Droop, a big event that we had there, launching the Highcon Beam. And 17 and 18 were growth areas for us. We continue to show year-over-year growth in our customer acceptance, with the number of units in market share, with the number of jobs running through the presses, and the amount of jobs each customer does growing. So it's been a nice year, and as we look into 2019, where we're at today, we're starting to see a very nice adoption rate of Highcon. So we're pretty happy with that. Next slide. Sorry, I don't have a clicker. If you look at the Highcon portfolio, if you will, we've got two platforms, which is the Euclid and the Beam platform. In the Euclid family, we've got three different products. In the Euclid family, we have the 3S for smaller format, B2 format. We have the Euclid 3 for a 30 by 42 inch, a B1. And those are mainly what we see the commercial printers adopt, is either a B2 format because of the Indigo Series 4 or other devices, or the B1 format because they're really looking not just at digital applications, but across the totality of jobs coming in. If it's offset and digital, they want to bridge the gap because the bottleneck is still there. It's not just a digital bottleneck. As we look into folding carton and a higher speed production device, we look at the Highcon Beam, which is same format, 30 by 42, up to 5,000 sheets an hour. Bill Lorenz has that, so he's also migrated from one to another. You'll learn a little bit more about that. And a year ago, almost today, we launched the Euclid C for corrugated. So we modified the commercial unit for corrugated, and we're now in the corrugated segment of the business, which is really exploding. It's kind of fun. We've got a lot of the major brands around the globe. They're very interested in the technology because of what it can do and the innovation that it brings. We see our customers in Puerto Rico, we see our customers in the US and Canada and Mexico, really looking to drive the innovation. What's next? While the Highcon technology allows for what I like to say is the boring boxes and the basic functionalities of pocket folders and just your basic crease and cutting, it can also do the innovation and grow the top line. So as you can do both, we start to accelerate our opportunity. So when you start to consider Highcon, there's a couple things to consider. What am I looking at? Why am I looking at it? And I hope you ask a lot of good questions of the panel today. But why Highcon is when you're looking to add value back into your business, either capture value within the business or recapture value because you're outsourcing the business, you're looking to do a couple different things. Can I invest in this technology to save cost, to save time? How do I get, and if I do save time, if I do save cost, can I deliver that back as value to my end user, speed to market? Those are the reasons why people are looking at Highcon, not just the filigree that we can do, the really cool decorative things, because your business is not really based on the really decorative, but it's based on cost savings, value capture, and time. How fast can I turn this and deliver this back to the end user? Perfect. Give it back to Matt.
Great, thank you, Paul. Bill Lorenz. Bill is Vice President of Operations and Manufacturing of Boutwell Owens, right outside of Boston. I've known Bill for a long time. He's a pioneer in this business. He was one of the first, if not the first, users of the HP Indigo 30,000 press. I was with HP at the time when it was installed. Was it 2014, Bill? So his company saw the opportunity to move into digital when not too many other folks were. And he was probably one of the foremost people in the market, in the folding carton market, of digital technology, Highcon digital technology, as well as Indigo 30,000 in print. David Bennett. David is owner of Bennett Graphics right outside of Atlanta, Georgia, in Tucker, Georgia. I too have known David for many years, back to my days with Heidelberg and then HP. He too is a visionary and an innovator and a pioneer in the business. And we're going to ask him a lot of questions today, but David runs a company and in the commercial print market, and it's a tough market out there, as you all know if you're in the commercial space. And he and his company have chosen to look for other ways to differentiate themselves in the marketplace rather than just ink on paper. And his stable of equipment is Heidelberg presses, HP Indigo digital presses, HP Cytex wide format machines, and he recently installed the Highcon Euclid 3, our B1 machine, very recently. So he's just moving into production now, but we wanted David on our panel because he can talk about some of the things that, and some of the reasons why he decided to invest in Highcon. So thank you both for joining us here today, guys. And we're gonna move right into the question and answer period. So I'm gonna start it off. Bill, the first question to you. What types of jobs are you producing today on the Highcon machine? I should say too that Bill also put in, Boutwell Owens also put in a Euclid machine, which was our folding carton machine, our only machine 4 years ago, before we had the Highcon Beam. and he had experience with that machine, and after about 2.5 years upgraded to our beam machine for folding carton. So with that, Bill, what types of jobs are you producing today on the Highcon beam?
Well, first, if I could just step back a little bit to correct Paul just once. I'll only do it once. Regular cartons are not boring.
They're money makers.
They make the money for us, so we can buy this. But anyway, what do we run? We run the tricky stuff that you can't make dies for. You know, we make the fancy stuff, but we also run everyday cartons. Everyday cartons are short run. That's what we're running on it, both SBS, clay-coated news, different foil. So we're running different stocks, but we're, depending on what the day calls for, is what we're gonna be running on the machine that day. So it's across the board.
Across the board. Question for you, David. Welcome to the Highcon family, by the way. We just finished the installation of his Euclid machine just recently in the past few weeks. What were some of the driving decisions that made you look into Highcon technology for your operation?
So we've been described, as a general commercial printer, but have also been described by many as more of a boutique type of printer. So as Matt talked about, we have our conventional lineup, our Heidelbergs, but we've invested very heavily in the digital side of the business too, both in the A3 and the B2 format size. We do a lot of things that a general commercial printer doesn't do. We have digital label capabilities. 2 years ago we added Scodix to our lineup, and then adding the Highcon. So basically, everything that we do as far as adding new technology or new equipment or new capabilities is an attempt to set us further apart from our competition, to make us more unique, basically to put a lot of pressure on our competition too. So doing things that no one in Atlanta, Georgia, the Southeast can do, gives us the ability to sell outside of our normal market, and it gives us the ability to get further upstream in the design process, to design things that we can print digitally, that we can Scodix, that we can Highcon, so that we can continue to add value to that same sheet, and hopefully, obviously the goal is to have a higher margin in product.
So a follow-up question, David, to that. You bought a machine that is disruptive to the marketplace. You don't have today a lot of work that's a natural fit for this machine. When you look at making a big decision like this, to make this sizable investment that you made, how you're able to determine how you can pay for a machine like this? This is a question that a lot of commercial printers and folding carton printers ask us each day. How can I make this decision to buy and move into disruptive technology, but also make money at the same time?
Sure. So, one of the things that Paul talked about earlier was we outsourced all of our die cutting before, right? So we were able to bring the majority of that back in-house, which in itself was able to make the payment for the machines. And so that's kind of where we're starting today from an ROI standpoint, is things that we were outsourcing before we can do internally now, and the additional margin that generates helps pay for the machine. But we're looking for those applications, and we know that those aren't going to happen over time, the real complex things, but we think that's where the differentiation is going to continue to set us apart from the thing. But today it was a result of not having to outsource as much product.
Question for you, Bill. We know you have conventional offset presses and a sizable stable of offset presses and conventional die cutters. What were some of the factors that you made when you decided to invest in the Highcon technology?
Okay, first I'd like to say that I am not a visionary, but I certainly like knowing people who I consider to be visionaries. And I think, as Mike Ferrari just helped me remember when it was, my first meeting with Highcon was 2011. 2011, and just sitting down with them and talking about what they wanted to do and what their plans were for the future was exciting. And certainly very exciting to me. I knew it would be very exciting to the industry. But come roll it up a bit to 2014, and now we've made a commitment to put in a HP 30,000. If you walk through our plant, you know, we're a reasonably sized plant. We're all folding carton and cards, $30 million operation, but we decorate our walls with racks. Those racks have dies in them. So it's throughout this whole plant. So dies everywhere, and we're putting in an HP 30,000. That's disruptive. So that we knew was going to change things, and just even if the salespeople weren't looking for it, they were going to fall into work that just wasn't going to make sense for us to make dies. So because die cutting was already a bottleneck for us. So that drove us towards thinking very, very hard about the Highcon. That drove us to getting a Euclid, which so happy we did. Euclid, honestly, wasn't what I envisioned to begin with because it was much slower. So that'll take us to the transition of getting to the beam. But it certainly handled all of our very, very small work and all the creative work that we just couldn't do with a die. So 2014 seems like a long time ago, but it was the right decision then to do that, and we're still moving forward with it.
A follow-up question to that, Bill, has the digital technology you've invested in, has it given you a competitive advantage in the marketplace?
Yeah, without question. It does allow us to do different things. We have not taken advantage of the strength of the Highcon as much as I'd like to, as I'd like us to. It's difficult. It's difficult for the salespeople. It really is, for them to understand everything that can be done. When you're trying to sell the creative part of the Highcon, it can be a tough sell for them. It really can. You got to get creative. You got to create files. There's a lot of steps to take. But once you get past those hurdles and figure out how to do that, now you've created something that you can build off of. But those first steps are hard. Highcon will help as HP helps. HP wants clicks. They want to sell sheets. Highcon wants to do the same thing. So they're going to help you in the marketplace, help you with our customers, how to build this business.
So one more follow-up question to that, Bill. Because Highcon does not use a conventional die in its technology, we believe it's one of the differentiating factors in our technology being so well accepted into the marketplace. What kind of savings are you realizing from using Highcon technology versus conventional?
Well, that's a little bit more difficult. We do cards. A blister card, if you're measuring a die out by linear inches, you're talking about how much rule that you have. Doesn't really matter to the Highcon. So it doesn't matter how much rule we're putting on that. So we can save anywhere from a few $100s to several and on up if you're just talking from the die standpoint. And of course, we're not buying a stripper. So there's no stripper involved. It's a non-blanking machine, which most of our die cutters are blankers as well. But so we're cutting and stripping and able to set that up rather quickly and not having to make that phone call to go out and order that die and stripper.
Bill, one more over to you. Is there any difference from your customer's perspective in cartons that are run conventionally or cartons that are run on Highcon technology? Does it matter to them? Do they know? Do you folks tell them? How do you approach that subject?
We do tell them, we do show them, and we do test. There are certain things that every day the Highcon, whether it be the Euclid, whether it be the beam, on a quality stock, you're not going to have any problem with the creases. We're not going to have any problem with runnability, checking the open force, dust flaps closing, running on high-speed equipment. Quality stock, not an issue. Less than a quality stock, something that's more like a dish rag or very short fibers, that's something that I think we're still working with Highcon to increase and maybe widen that increase or widen the crease. So make it so it is able to bend exactly the way it's supposed to, where the quality of the stock dictates whether you can use that or not.
Thank you. David, although you haven't had the machine for too long, you don't have much production data to speak of. How do you plan on incorporating the Highcon into your overall company strategy?
Well, again, as I mentioned, we like to do things to make us unique. And while today we're just using it as a general production die cutter, we believe that as we get further into the process and further into the creative process with our clients, that we'll be able to do things that can't be done conventionally or can't be done quickly. So we can be more responsive. We can let somebody version things a lot easier than they might be able to do in today's market. So kind of looking down the road, it's just another way to make us unique in the marketplace.
Do you plan on incorporating a formal strategy, a business plan for the Highcon? Is it necessary, or is it just another quiver in your, or arrow in your quiver that you folks have now to offer your customers?
Yeah, we don't have a particularly formal plan in that. I think it just kind of fits along with the other technologies that we have, and it is just another arrow in the quiver.
And have you had discussions up till now with your customer base about this new technology, the Highcon technology that you've installed, and what it can do for them?
Well, on social media, we've been kind of teasing it for probably about 3 or 4 months. The installation took, not from your perspective, it took quite a bit longer than we had anticipated because we didn't have enough power in the end of the building. So dealing with the local utility was quite frustrating. So we've had a lot of time to kind of build up the anticipation of it. And some things that we do on a regular basis, we send a bi-monthly magazine out, and we always incorporate Scodex as part of it, and we'll incorporate Highcon as a part of it. So everything that we do when we send out, we try to show things that are in our capability, and it always generates conversations. But we also plan to have, probably on a monthly or bi-monthly basis, some lunch and learns to show samples, to talk about how to create things and how it can set them apart in their things. So that's down the road, but something that we'll be starting pretty quickly.
Yeah, and from my perspective, is to add, because you have the Scodex machine in there as well, I believe that the opportunities for you to deliver high-value products to your customers is incredible. Once you start getting some designers who can start playing with Scodex, start playing with Highcon, I'm incredibly excited to see some of the products you folks are going to be able to produce with that technology, as well as with the most likely coming off the HP Indigo 12,000s. Bill, a production question for you. A lot of people ask us, what's the setup time of a Highcon machine in a folding carton environment versus a conventional die cutter? Could you explain a little or expound a little bit on the differences in both of those technologies?
Well, again, I think inches of rule, that certainly is going to lead you down the path to how long it's going to take conventionally, how much patching you may have to do, and how long that make ready may take. That make ready, it's going to be longer the first time. You save your sheet. It's not going to be as long the next time. Maybe the next time it's only as long as it takes on the Highcon every time. The Highcon, if it's just a cut job, there isn't any make ready. It's really quick. If it has minimal creasing, it's how long does it take to write that crease, and then it spins around once in our format and it's cured. So it's happening pretty quickly. So in reality, 15, 25 minutes, it's going to be done, and you're going to be up, and you've registered both your crease to your cut, and now you're ready to hit the button and start running.
It's pretty quick. On the business side of things, have you used the Highcon to mainly support your customer base, your existing customer base, or have you used it to go out and bring in new customers to Boutwell Owens because of its capabilities?
Without question, the second one was harder in the beginning because we needed to understand it. We needed to understand what we had. We need to not be afraid of what we had and know how to use it. But we're really doing some different exciting things now that we wouldn't have without it. So that's great. But we use it every day for conventional work. Same way we use the 30,000. We use it every day for the exact same products that we run on an offset press. We run it on the digital press because the quantities are so small. But we're able to do that for the customer. If they want 200 of them, they want 50 of them, whatever it is, we can run that through the digital workflow and turn it when we need to because they need it quickly. So in both formats, printing and cutting.
Bill, is there a cutoff on the number of sheets that you folks will put on the Highcon versus conventional machines? You have an internal number, whereas, okay, if it's more than this, then we'll have to go conventional. If it's less, then we'll go Highcon.
There is no answer for that. You can't have an answer. You have to look at every project differently. When you start talking about Highcon sheets, that's just one thing. It's sheets, but it really doesn't mean a lot. How long is it going to take to cut each sheet? So you have to know how much cutting time there is. So if we're talking a carton and we're running 2840 presses, and say it's 1 up, 2 up, 15 up, so not a lot of rule there. So it's going to cut relatively quick. If you're cutting a big carton, it may be running at 4,000 sheets an hour. If you're cutting something that is nothing but cut, nothing but you can't, and there's hardly any paper left. And that's what happens with some of these projects that you get driven to. And you say, wow, that takes forever. But you couldn't do it without the Highcon. You wouldn't be in that discussion. So you wouldn't be able to do it all. So yes, we've run jobs at actually 50 sheets an hour. 50 sheets an hour, but we're running jobs. I'm sure we ran jobs while I wasn't there today that we're running at 3,500 sheets an hour. So it depends on the mix. So you have to look at everything and say, oh, it used to be that, 5,000 sheets at the fastest. Even we knew the fastest this machine's going to run a 5,000 sheet job. More than that, we'd say, oh, do we really want to run it there? Now that's completely different. We've graduated to the beam. And the beam has a much higher run speed than what we're able to accomplish on the Euclid.
Bill, how many shifts do you run the Highcon beam today?
We have somebody on it during the day, and we have somebody trained on it that can be running it during night. If we need to, we're running it 2 shifts. 2 shifts on that, so we do run an operation that's 7 days a week around the clock on some equipment. On the bigger presses. So certainly there, we'd love to be able to run it, or we'd love to be able to have the work that's forcing us to run it 7 days around the clock, but not yet.
And the learning curve for the operators who run the machine, Bill, are they operators, number one, how is the ramp up? And number two, what is their profile? Were they conventional die cutter operators, or did they come from some other part of the business? What was the makeup of the profile of the operators that you folks have?
Well, I'm sure everybody in this room, you've been through this one way or another. You think you know who's going to be the right operator and what background you're looking for. Proven wrong every day. Never know. You never know. It's in that individual on how well they're going to take it, how well they're going to learn. We've had very successful HP operators that knew nothing about the operation. A very successful guy come off a printing press and just didn't want to work that hard anymore. He wants to run the digital print. Fantastic operator, fantastic. Now we've run into the same thing from the Highcon standpoint, that the person that's really behind it, we have a trainer internally that trains not just Highcon operation, but folding carton. What is a good folding carton? What is a good product? He's been doing it for 20 years through die cutters, and he's learned everything about the Highcon, and so he's a great trainer. The latest person that we've trained that runs the machine now didn't know anything about die cutting. Doing a great job for us. Learn the machine. They can learn it pretty well as long as you have somebody that, well, pretty quickly, as long as you have somebody that's working with them. And they have to be receptive. They have to be receptive. Our second shift person is a die cutting operator that he's always been doing that, and he's also been taught. So I can't give you the answer on who's the best operator or who's the best candidate. It's usually determined by that person.
Yeah, and we just completed training at Bennett Graphics in the past few weeks, and one of their operators, their main operator, is a journeyman die cutter operator who's really taken nicely to the machine. And the other operator that we trained is the gal who is on the Scodex machine, and she too has done a nice job. She's not afraid of the technology. Right. She's willing to learn. They have no preconceived notions. And I can tell already, David, that you're going to be in good hands with those two for sure. With that, I want to take a little breather myself, and now that we've got some, a little bit about Bennett Graphics and a little bit about Bowell Owens, to turn over the questions to you folks. Would anyone like to ask David or Bill questions from your perspective? Don't be shy.
I guess one of the questions is, because the machine takes longer to set up certain types of dies depending on the complexity, how do you price it? Do you request that you have to see a file beforehand because it makes such a difference, or do you average it out somehow?
I believe that is an excellent question that we have worked very diligently with Highcon. I think if you talk to the Highcon users, that's something we have to solve. That's something we have to solve. I have an advantage now. We have an advantage. We've done enough work, we can compare it to something. We can compare it. I would say it's very difficult for someone new to look at a piece and say, how fast is that going to run? How much are we going to use? So that's a tough one. And I don't want to state it. You may know, Paul may know, but we've asked for that because there's a tool to help us estimate a job based on a file, and there's an update to that tool, because they've had a tool available, but it hasn't been exactly what we want. Not as accurate as it should be, put it that way. But that is something that I believe Highcon realizes is right at the top of the list of tools that they need to provide their customers, which is a better way to estimate the job.
And I think as a follow-up on that, I would agree with what he said, is that in a perfect scenario, you'd love to have the file, but especially in a commercial environment, having a file at the estimating stages is practically non-existent. We don't have it. So, our initial plan is through some marketing pieces, to develop a number. We're going to start with like 4 different complexities, and our sales team will be able to say show, and it's like, let's A/B. We want to do it at B complexity, but we still have to have the caveat in the estimate that the price will be reviewed with the final file. But I would agree that it's not an easy answer at this point in time. There's a lot of variables involved in the things that are super complex. And if you're doing the same kind of work day in and day out, doing pocket pullers and things like that, it's easy because you have some history. But the things that we hope will show up on the machine are things that are sort of gray right now as far as what the speeds are going to be.
Like the image on the screen.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
How do you estimate that?
Well, also, when somebody would create a file like this, if, for instance, the inner piece that's being cut and dropped out, if there were starts and stops in that line, just one file error, not one, but repeated over every time, the machine actually stops. You want it to be a continuous flow, so you don't want all these starts and stops. That's something that the designer needs to understand that, and whoever's creating that final file. Once you've learned that, you've picked that up, you say, oh, yeah, you realize how it causes a major problem when you're actually trying to cut the job.
Yeah, thank you for the answers, guys, and being so honest and upfront about it. Highcon is working on an estimated solution, and we're very, very close to going beta with the solution in the next 30 days or so. And yeah, on regular folding carton work, where you can measure the creases and the cuts, it's a lot easier. It's when you get into these more complex and creative designs where it becomes a little bit more difficult to find the actual cost, the speed, the cost of those jobs. Last week at Bennett Graphics, we had a sales training session with their sales team, and we had some designers in there, and it was a good session because we were able to coach them a little bit about the best practices with how to estimate jobs, especially on the creative side, because it's a little bit more difficult. Any more questions?
How much stripping does it do? You know, we don't like the manual strip things. We like them coming up blanked. So on the machine, is it average a half hour a skid, an hour a skid that people after, post die cutting to strip those skids?
Well, I think you can define stripping a couple different ways in my book. If it's internal stripping, where we're taking out waste of those pieces are going to come out. If you're trying to take the blank out, then it's really not any different than conventional stripping. If you cut and stack a job on a die cutter and you're going to strip that carton or that blank out, if anything, you should be able to make it easier on the Highcon, because you can cut anywhere you want. You get it, you take a few out, you see how it's breaking out. You can add in an extra line. You can add in just another cut easily without having to go back and have your die board cut up or add in another piece of rule. So stripping, it's really not different. Other than the fact, this is actually a key fact, I hadn't thought of it, but the nicks. You have such a control on the nicks here that you don't like that nick, change it. You can change it at the machine, make it a little smaller, move it over here. How's that piece popping out? You can actually change the size of the nick and location of the nick quite easily. So at least you can on our beam. I don't know if you can do that on the Euclid or not. Yeah, okay. So yeah, that's a big thing, being able to change the size of the nick and location of the nick with ease to make the job strip easier.
More questions?
So you have HP. Is most of the stuff on the Highcon come off your digital press or your offset press for folded cartons?
Yes, we have an HP, but most of the stuff that we actually cut on the Highcon comes off our offset presses. So obviously anything with any intricacy to it, things like that on the screen, all that stuff has to go to the Highcon coming off a digital press. But no, the majority of the work that we're cutting on the Highcon is definitely coming off of offset presses.
Yeah, in our world, in the commercial world, is probably a little bit different. One thing that we really liked about the Euclid is that it fits our full press dimensions all the way from 13 by 19 up to the 28 by 40 sheet. So more than half of ours does come from digital, but again, a different market. So I think it's kind of difficult to compare the two.
Yeah, I guess, Bill, I'd have to ask the question, why do you think that is? Why is more of the work coming off the conventional than the 30,000 at this point? And
It's not a hard answer. We just do so much more on our offset presses. We have a lot more work than's coming off our 1 HP.
Yeah.
That's why.
Yep, makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, for each of you, one is with folding cartons, the other is with commercial. For each of you, how has the Highcon changed your business strategy? In other words, what is your business strategy? What has it allowed you? Is it just low volume SKUs? Or are you selling speed to market? Or are you doing customization and personalization? Just like to get an understanding of how those split out and whether they've really changed your business model.
Well, I don't know that we're that far into it enough to do, but I think it's kind of all of the above. I think speed to market is huge right now. You know, I mean, it's especially if we can do something very unique very quickly. So speed to market, cost, uniqueness. Uniqueness to us is a big deal. How can we be unique to our customers and set ourselves apart from the competition?
Speed to market's critical for some customers. A lot of customers, it's not until it is. And now they need something right now, and we're able to do that. You know, right now, I was on a phone call this morning. We're gonna do something for tomorrow. No, that's not soon enough. It's for the masters. The masters, if you don't follow golf at all, it's coming right out. They want that product this afternoon. So we're doing it this afternoon, and it'll be done, and it'll go through the Highcon. So there's that going through the HP, going through the Highcon, getting out to the customer this afternoon. So you can do it when you have to. Don't want to do that all the time, but certainly do it when you have to. As far as, we haven't gone down the path enough to do everything the HP will do or the Highcon will do, serialization and things like that. We don't use that enough, don't sell that enough. Again, that's something else of getting your sales group comfortable with selling it.
Any more questions, folks? I wanted to say, from my perspective, talking with customers and prospects every day, the single biggest question we ask is, or get asked, is that we love your technology. It's so cool. I can see it in my plant, but I'm just nervous about being one of the first people to invest in technology like this. I think both David and Bill—
That ship sailed.
That's where I was going with this, Bill. I think you can see that these guys, Bill's had the machine now for over 4 years. This isn't David's first rodeo. He's invested in new technology before. And sometimes you just have to go with it. And if it's going to give you an advantage in the marketplace and allow you to differentiate and bring additional value that your competitors can't bring, you really need to look into it. You can't stay status quo. That's one of the reasons why I work here at Highcon, is because we can deliver a product that virtually nobody else can. And it allows you to do things that you couldn't do before. And that's a huge advantage in the marketplace, to be able to go out there and say, hey, I can do this and nobody else can't. It's a nice place for you to be. And I can tell you, after being with the Bennett Graphics sales team last week and taking them through our technology, the product, the applications, and the opportunities, I've never seen 10 salespeople more jazzed up to go sell print and cut material as I did last week. And it's just a testament that in today's world, you've got to take chances. And I can tell you, it's not that big of a risk these days. Okay, we've been out now for the last 5 years. We have over 70 installations worldwide. Everyone's in a tough market. Everyone wants to differentiate. And there's a time to do that. The time is now to start looking at ways, because the world is changing and moving so quickly. You can't be left behind. You have to look at ways that are going to allow you to compete and thrive in the marketplace. And that's what I can tell you that both David and Bill have done with their companies. They're trying to stay 1, 2, 3 steps ahead of everyone. I'm sure both of these guys would be very happy if no one in this room ever bought another machine, because they'll have no competition. Right? David, I know you don't want me to sell one in the Atlanta market for a while, right? We have that agreement. But anyways, thank you both for joining us and supporting us, as always. I want to ask one last thing, probably to you, Bill, because you've had our technology the longest. how would you rate Highcon as a supplier to you? You have a lot of different suppliers in your organization, and I don't know what he's going to say, but I figured that you folks would probably want to know how a small little company can support big printing companies that you folks have and are part of. Give us a little example.
First off, we'll talk about the first install. That was amazing. It was a day and a half. It was amazing. But it was also March, so we couldn't plug it in until it thawed out. Came off the truck. We're in Boston, so it was frozen solid when we installed it. And they said, we'd really not like to plug this in and put power to it till next week after all the moisture is gone. So, but I think the group they're all entrepreneurs at Highcon. They're very, very supportive. They want to get there. They got a mission. They want us to get there. And so they're driving us just like HP does. So they're both trying to drive their suppliers, drive the customer base. They are very, very supportive of what we're doing. And be the first to admit, I drive them hard as well. So we'd like more, we'd like faster responses, but they are a great supplier. They are a great supplier. There's nothing that we put on the list that we wanted to see changed or improved that hasn't been on that list. And they've put it on their list and they put it on their targets and they're going to get there. It's just, I'd kind of like to have things overnight, so they don't always happen that way.
You've always been very pushy, Bill. Anyways, thank you so much for providing support to Highcon. Thank you for joining our panel today.